Welcome to the City Manager's Report. The City Manager's Report is your preview of the next Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda and an update from your Oshkosh City Manager. Your hosts, Emily Mikowski of Oshkosh Community Media and City Manager Mark Roloff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on your City Manager's Report, your source for all of the latest and greatest things happening in your city of Oshkosh, as well as a preview of the upcoming City Council meeting agenda. I'm your host, Emily Mikowski, and as always, I am joined by our City Manager, Mark Roloff. So Mark, thank you as always for joining us today.
Great to be here, Emily.
So Mark, we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to go ahead and dive into our hot topics for the first half of today's show. We'll take a little break, and then we'll come back with a preview of the City Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, February 9th, 2016. So Mark, of course, we have to open the show with a very hot topic of everybody's conversation right now, and that's snow.
Weather's always a topic to talk about.
Weather's always a big one, and we just are recovering, still cleaning up a little bit from this big storm on Tuesday here in Oshkosh. How did we do this winter event?
Well, I would say that beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but we had a pretty rough storm for a good amount of time, and fortunately there was enough advance notice and planning for this, and I think the whole community really helped in this as well, because sometimes timing works out very well. We deploy the same number of people and those types of things, but because so many people were off the street, schools were closed, businesses were closing early, and because of the timing of the storm, we were able to preemptively get out and get some work done on the streets even before the snow started to fly. Mm-hmm. And then as people were heading home, we were already in residential areas before people got home from work. So they may have hit a windrow in front of their driveway apron before they got home, but the street leading up to their subdivision or their neighborhood was probably okay. So sometimes it's, I don't want to say luck, but sometimes we do benefit from the fact that we can proactively do some things, and knowing the conditions of the storm, and the storm just being more very timely. It started at a certain time and ended at a certain time, and then there's not the second wave or anything like that.
Right. I think that's a very important point to make. As we were briefing before the episode, you were telling us how the timing of the storm really is everything. A lot of times we'll get a huge snowfall in the middle of the night, and that really makes a difference with how well we're able to manage it, because there are different staff members on, or different amounts of staff members on, to be able to do that. So this kind of a storm, it's a huge storm, but the timing was just great.
Right. We can get our folks out anytime, 24/7.
Right.
It's really more what are the conditions they're facing when they're out there. If they're facing rush hour traffic with this, their effectiveness drops a whole bunch. And if it's more convenient that we don't impact the neighborhoods as much. Most people were still at work, and when they got home, the snow was already removed. All they had to do was deal with their driveway apron. So all those little factors come into play. Mm-hmm. But we do have our snowplow routes. We have 26 designated snowplow routes. We have those folks out in force, and then in addition to that, we have some folks that come in just before the storm, immediately after the storm, and we generally don't get started on residential areas until we have about 3 inches. Mm-hmm. So we get to the main street so people can get off of the main drags and into their neighborhoods, and depending on when they're getting home and depending on when the crews have been there, that's really the timing. It's a little bit of having the stars in the right alignment, even with the same amount of resources doing exactly the same amount of work. It varies on the results from storm event to storm event.
Right, and I think issuing the snow emergency the day before the storm also helped a lot, that people were aware that they are not able to park on the streets during the storm and after the storm. So I think that was a good thing, as well as communicating what you just said, the snowplow routes, how the main arterials are the main focus in the initial snow plowing operations, and then the residential streets are tended to.
Our new public works director, our new police chief, working together with some of our other department heads, fire, parks, we did a little bit of strategizing on how to change some of those things. So deploying for emergency purposes, as well as the snow emergency. Mm-hmm. We decided that we're going to be a little more proactive in the future on declaring snow emergencies. Now that may be inconvenient for some folks who are parking on the street, but when we have when we can schedule that a little better, then we know that this time we can do this side of the street, and then the next day we can get the other side of the street done without inconveniencing people too much. And snowstorms are always going to be inconvenient on some level or the other. We try to minimize that level of inconvenience, and I think we're trying to improve better all the time. Nobody's perfect, but we try to be as responsive as we can with the resources we have.
Right, and in addition to being, in the know about different things happening, we did initiate a new email updates subscription service during this storm. So if you are interested in subscribing to this, you will get updates sent directly to your inbox, and I think our Public Works Director sent out about 3 or 4 messages throughout the storm, beginning, the day before and then ending after the storm, just on where we're at, how the roads are, what you got to watch out for, and the status of the snow plowing. So if you're interested in doing it,
right there on the website, just look for that little snow plow truck and click there, and you can subscribe to it. And we're starting this out. We're seeing how it goes. Give us your input on how this works, and we'll try to do better and improve this as time goes on.
Yes, and of course, as we're on the topic of snow, we got to give a reminder for snow removal. Make sure you remove snow from your sidewalks. I think it's 24 hours. Yes, 24 hours after snowfall has stopped. Make sure to not cover the fire hydrants, and if the fire hydrants are covered with snow, clear that out, as well as do not throw snow in the street or snowplow shooting the snow out into the street either. So
exactly.
You can find more information about that on the city website. Mark, next thing we want to talk about is the parking workshop that took place on the day of the last council meeting on January 26th. And a lot was discussed, and there was a lot of great information that was gone over. So maybe you can give us a few of the noteworthy highlights.
There was a lot of discussion about our inventory of parking spaces, both public and private. A lot of private parking spaces in the central city area, particularly at the city center lot. But there's a lot of public parking, and I think some of it was how much availability do we have, and is there a need for a new parking garage or an additional parking garage? And pretty much the answer to that was no. This is one sample that was discussed at the meeting, and what they did was a snapshot on a sample day throughout the day. So they started at 8 in the morning and went all the way through 8 o'clock at night, I believe. This is an example of weekday parking conditions at noon. And the red is showing the parking area that's most impacted or closest to full capacity. And you can see there's only 2 areas. One is a private area, city center, and that's also because a lot of parking for lunchtime is on there. So this peak parking demand coincides with offices and restaurants and retail demands all at the same time. But that's on the north side of this map is the Roxy restaurant. So it's a busy place, a destination at lunch. And then down at City Center, you've got people going to lunch at Beckett's and along the riverfront, along with the peak demand of the work schedule at City Center with For Imprint and Silver Star Brands. So a lot of busyness. But the rest of the downtown is okay. And you can see that some of the green, which is a large part of this, in yellow, that's less than 75% full.
Okay. So
you don't have as full a parking lot, and green is very light, and the gray area is,
of course, is the
not heavy at all. So the idea is that we don't have as much a parking problem as we do a distribution issue about how convenient these parking places are.
Right. I think that's a good point. It's not always the amount of parking, but the convenience of the parking that might be the issue. So it seems that you said, I don't know if you said this or not, but there is not a need for a new parking structure. I know that was a big topic of conversation.
That was really the issue, that there is not a need for a parking structure, which is extremely expensive. About $20,000 on average per space.
Wow.
So that would be very expensive. But one of the things that we have to own up to is that our policies have been changed so much on a piecemeal basis over the years that they're largely confusing to the motoring public. The most common complaint I get about parking is what is viewed as inconsistency. Well, it's consistent if you read the signs, but the signs are so confusing.
They are confusing.
You can understand why people are very upset about that. We need to hit the reset button on this, and we are going to do that. And we're going to be working with our downtown businesses. Part of the issue is encouraging them and finding a way for them to get their employees to park farther away from the business so that the customers can get closer. Now, there may be a premium that has to be paid, and we may consider bringing back some type of meters, but it would be more like the pay and display that you see in some other metropolitan areas. Right. They're a little on the expensive side, but long run, they're really effective at managing parking in the most high demand areas. And if we can do some of those things, you'll be seeing some of those things rolling out. I told council I'd be coming back to them within the month with what our next steps are. And the policies, I think, are really where we have to get looking at.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like it was a really good discussion. There was a lot of things that were talked about. If you'd like to see the full workshop with all the details, you can log on to our website, www.oshkoshcommunitymedia.org, and watch the entire episode on our website. Mark, next thing we want to talk about is another workshop, is the Oshkosh Area School District and Council Joint Workshop. And this was kind of a regular type of biannual workshop that you do. How'd it go, and were there any main things that you like to discuss?
Yeah, sure. There were about 8 topics that we discussed. We only had an hour. It's the first time we've been able to do it in about a year, and the council and school board would like to see that it happen more frequently. But we hit on a variety of topics, but some of the major ones had to do with, for example, collaborative marketing with all of our partners in economic development, Go EDC, but also highlighting what's important to help sell the community. Schools are very important. Quality of life, things that we do at the city, parks, museums, libraries, those are the things that really make a community attractive. And highlighting those things because businesses that want to attract employees want us to have these types of features and play them up so that they can help sell them to prospective employees. So that was one. The impact of low-income housing on the school district, because as we do either low-income housing or high-density housing, that can impact the demand for where different schools see a spike in enrollment. And the school district wants to manage enrollment better, so we agreed that there could be some procedures where we keep them informed about potential housing developments that may impact the school district, as well as the impact when it is a low-income housing type of situation. That could have some other unforeseen circumstances, impacts on the school district. So we want to take care of that.
Okay.
Diversity coordinator. The council's given me a goal to take a look at this. The school districts seem very open to that because they acknowledge that about 18 to 19% of their enrollment is of a more diverse nature. So we need to keep an eye on that as well. And then our new police chief, Dean Smith, talked to the school board about what we're doing to prepare for equipping our officers with body cams. There will be an impact in schools because officers are in schools, and we want to make sure that people's privacy is protected, yet we still have the effectiveness of the body cams. And Chief Smith is very well versed in this. He has a great deal of experience with this, and he shared some of the thoughts of what we can see as we go down the road with this.
Wow. Wide variety of stuff you guys talked about. That was only 4 of the items. There was, I think, 8 or 9 items that you talked about. So hopefully we'll be able to meet more often and be able to discuss more of these things. So that whole entire workshop is also available on our website if you're interested in seeing it in its entirety. Mark, one thing that we wanted to mention is the Center City Master Plan, Imagine Oshkosh. They just released their new website, and they're kind of hitting this really hard, and we've got a couple of workshops coming up for this. Maybe you can just give us a little bit of background on the Center City plan.
Our planning department has set up a specific page, and they're calling the initiative Imagine Oshkosh. But it's about creating a master plan for our central city area, north and south of the river, east and west of Main Street, not just Main Street itself, it's all of the area. But we're going to have a community workshop on February 15th. It's going to be at 7 p.m. at the Oshkosh Convention Center. The next day we're going to have a similar workshop for businesses. So one for residents and one for businesses, both at the Convention Center, February 16th in the morning, but February 15th for the community is going to be in the evening so that people coming after work.
And these are kind of brainstorming meetings, kind of to just bring your ideas of what you see in the Center City.
What would you like Oshkosh to look like the next 10 to 20 years is really the tagline. So we're looking for imagination, ideas, suggestions on what you'd like to see.
Excellent. And you can visit this page. You can also access that through the city's website. There are also surveys and little things that you can take on this page to help in addition to attending the workshops. Mark, last thing on our list here is we got to give a plug for the State of the City. It's only about 2 months away, which is scary to think about, but Monday, March 21st is our State of the City this year, and we're already in the thick of planning it.
It's 6 weeks. Things are flying.
Yeah.
Monday, March 21st at 6 p.m., the Convention Center. Doors open at 6 for our City Exhibit Expo, and I'll start the address at 6:30, and then we'll do our awards program. We'll keep reminding you about it, but just save the date. We'd love to have you there.
Get it in the calendar. So now it's that time of the show where viewers have the chance to ask their city manager anything they like about things that are going on in Oshkosh right now. So let's go ahead and see what the question mark question is this week. Mark, the question this week is kind of a follow-up to some things that we've talked about in the past. When will the truck loading area be relocated from Allerton Drive? We haven't heard about Allerton Drive for a while.
It's taken a long time, but we're getting close to an answer. Part of it is that the area that Allerton Drive, we really want to relocate it into our industrial park. But we had to get the right incentive for the railroad to be willing to move it. And what we've really done is we've completely redone this to, instead of simply moving a truck loading area, we are creating what's known as a transload facility location. The railroad will benefit a great deal from that. What we thought originally was only going to cost us about $400,000, we're going to be spending over $2 million, but we're applying for a grant from the state of about $1.1 million. The railroad's chipping in $500,000. Other entities are chipping in more money. We'd originally anticipated we were going to spend $200,000 of our own money, and that's still all we're going to spend. Everybody else we've piled on a lot of good features that this is going to be the first rail transloading facility in all of Northeast Wisconsin.
Really?
So we're going to be able to attract businesses that want to have a reliable loading location for rail, but they're not adjacent to rail. They can bring their trucks here, they can drop it, they can load it into the new site. This is over near Leco Steel on Atlas Drive, just off of Highway 91, near the railroad tracks. It's not too far away from like Leco Steel and 4 Imprint. You'll be able to bring trucks there and load it away from residential areas, and that's the beauty of this.
And that's where it all started, was getting it away from that residential area.
So my goal is to hopefully hear from the state within the next month to 6 weeks, and if that's the case, then perhaps construct that this summer.
Wonderful. Well, great news. That's a good chunk of information, kind of late breaking too. So.
And I'm so relieved that we're going to be able to work on this.
Yes, wonderful. We're looking forward to it. If you have a question to send to Mark, make sure you send it to questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us. Tweet it to us on Twitter or write it on our Facebook page, and he will answer it on the next episode of City Manager's Report. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to hit the City Council meeting agenda for this Tuesday, February 9th. We'll be right back on City Manager's Report.
Hi, I'm Jim Collins, Transportation Director for the City of Oshkosh with an important message for motorists and bicyclists. Recently, the city has begun painting bike Shero symbols on roadways. The term Shero is short form for shared lane bicycle marking. Sheros are made up of bicycle and chevron symbols, and they are located about 4 feet away from the curb where parking is not allowed and about 11 feet where it is. Streets with Sheros do not have a designated bike lane, but still indicate that the roadway segment is a bike route and is expected to be used by bicyclists. Shero markings are used to show motorists where cyclists will be traveling within the lane, while also showing cyclists proper lane positioning, especially where lanes are too narrow to be safely shared. It's important to note that with or without marked Sheros, bicyclists are encouraged to travel on streets and follow traffic laws just as any other vehicle on the road. Motorists are urged to continue to be aware of bicyclists and to share the road. Thank you for keeping Oshkosh safe, and happy riding.
Welcome back to City Manager's Report. Thanks again for joining us. Now it's that time of the show. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the City Council meeting agenda for this Tuesday, February 9th, 2016. So, Mark, first item that we want to talk about is item number 3, Resolution 16-46, approve final resolution for special assessments for paving, sidewalk, driving, and utilities for the first local street concrete paving program. This is just basically, it's the street projects for the CIP in 2016. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what streets we're looking at this year?
Sure. The main one is Bowen Street at the very south end and some of the connecting streets in and around that area, Mill Street and things of that nature. We have a number of street projects that we want to do for the year, and what we do is part of that is paid for with special assessments. Not a huge part, but for the pavement itself, it's pretty much a third for each side of the road and a third by the city. So we notify people that this is what we estimate the amount to be. We can't exceed that amount without re-noticing them.
Okay.
Typically it's that amount or less, but Bowen Street is a big one, and there'll be some discussions with the council about the nature of the improvements out there, and are there any options for maybe changing that a little bit because it dead ends over into the river and the fishing pier over there. Mm-hmm. But this is our continuing effort to keep improving streets, particularly in neighborhoods, and this is our major project for this year. We're also going to be doing North Main Street. That the state's going to be bidding that out separately. They're going to be doing it where it's just a separate arrangement, but we're still doing Main Street this year.
Good. I know a lot of people are looking forward to all these streets being redone and improved, so great item here. Under consent agenda items, Mark, we want to talk about Resolution 1648. This is for an approved purchase for some police vehicles for the police department to Ewald's Hartford Ford, and that's almost $200,000. So give us a little bit of a background on that.
These are our squad cars and actually some our community service officer vehicles. The replacement program that we have, we piggyback on a state contract that the state's awarded, and they offer the similar pricing without us having to go through all the formal bidding. So they let us know what the prices are. They're very competitive compared to retail that you and I would pay. Mm-hmm. So it saves the taxpayers a great deal of money and us a lot of time in having to acquire it. So we purchase it from on behalf of the police department through the state contract, and our squad cars get a lot of use, and we need to replace them on a regular basis to keep our maintenance costs down.
Definitely. So that's an interesting cooperative bid thing that you just explained to us. Kind of cool to hear. Coming up next, we have another purchase, kind of a lot of purchases getting ready for the summer here. This one includes the Senior Center South parking lot improvements, and it's about $777,000, and this one definitely needs some improvements. So
this has not been done in a very long time, and it has a lot of multi-uses. It serves as the parking lot for the fishing or the boating launch over there near the senior center, as well as the major parking lot for people who are disabled, and a lot of parking spaces there for the disabled community.
Right.
But it's a Senior Center South building, so it's over $750,000, but it's very necessary, and we have an allowance for parking lots throughout the city. This is this year's version of it. This rated the highest of our parking lots that needed to be replaced. We did some of the area over by Riverside Park this past year, and this is this year's version. So there'll be a little inconvenience at the Senior Center this summer, and we'll coordinate that to minimize the inconvenience for the people who go to the Senior Center, but it's going to be nice to see in the long run.
It'll be well worth it. That's a very highly used parking lot. I know there's a connection to a trail there as well, in addition to the boat launch.
And we're doing the trail connection as well, because that's gotten a little bumped up in recent years.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Looking forward. That'll be a good summer project. Even though it will be a little inconvenient, it'll be all worth it. Mark, next item is a lengthy one. It's an agreement with Cumberland Court Master Development and the Housing Authority for the City of Oshkosh. This is for payment in lieu of taxes, otherwise known as pilot, for Cumberland Court Apartments. Explain this a little bit to us. When we hear the word or the acronym pilot, it's a little bit confusing. So maybe you can give us some background on that.
Sure. Pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. The Housing Authority is a separate governmental entity. We appoint some people, the council appoints people, the county appoints some people, and they develop public housing projects. And we're redoing the Housing Authority is redoing what's called Cumberland Court. It's off of 9th Avenue, just south of 9th. And because it's public housing, they don't pay taxes, but they certainly have an impact on the general area, and certainly demand on services. So what they've agreed to is make a payment in lieu of taxes to fund improvements there. So that's what this is about. We really appreciate the cooperation of the Housing Authority because they recognize that they do have an impact on city services and they're willing to pay their fair share. So it's a very equitable arrangement for the city to get this payment.
Excellent. Good to get a little background on that. Next item we're talking about is one I was kind of interested in, is the Oshkosh Area Humane Society for Animal Shelter Services for 2016 to 2018. And this is an agreement between them and the city. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the agreement. Why is there an amount of money being paid? About $88,000 actually.
The city contracts with the Oshkosh Area Humane Society, which is a separate nonprofit entity, and they provide services for the entire Oshkosh area, not just the city of Oshkosh.
Right.
We have not had a contract for a number of years. We needed to work through some accountability issues, which they've more than satisfied now, and we're very happy to be able to provide that service, or have them provide that service to us on a contractual basis. The amount has increased from prior years because they've been able to demonstrate the value they're providing us. What this is animal control services, what people commonly referred to long ago as the dog catcher. It's not a dog catcher anymore. The Humane Society does a very good job of making sure that any strays that we identify, that they pick them up and hold on to them as long as they can so they can get reunited with their owners. That's really their number one priority, is to reunite. But and they have a shelter that they can have these dogs ready for adoption as well.
Yes.
Those are the two options before we have to look at the lesser ones that we really don't want to consider. And I think the Humane Society does a very good job of avoiding those in most cases. So we're very pleased to have that service with them.
Yes, yeah, I was very fascinated to hear that, and a lot of people think that there's a department for the dog catcher for the city, but they kind of take care of it for us, so that's wonderful. Last item that we want to talk about today, Mark, is under new ordinances, Ordinance 16-60, approve repealing and recreating Section 247 Public Arts and Beautification Committee. So this was a committee that did in fact exist for a little while, and now we're kind of reinstating it?
Yeah, we hadn't really convened it. It was a public arts committee that was limited to murals, and the task that was given from council to staff was, we need to include not just public art, but community beautification and things of that nature. You may have heard about the mayor's initiative to do the Lake Fly project, to do public art. And this committee would take a look at those types of initiatives, whether they're from the city or from private or nonprofit groups that want to do public type of art. And so the committee is just being reformulated, and its area of responsibility is being broadened actually. And the idea is to look at these types of things and what public art or beautification is in the best interest of the community. So another citizen committee, we're going to be looking for more people to join.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So take a look out for this. I'm sure the mayor will be looking for people to appoint, but we're very excited that we have this committee to help address these areas and these topics when they come up, because we want to make sure that there's some logic to doing this public art.
Definitely, yes. So we can look at the city website, hopefully in the future, to find application for that committee or any other board or commission that you're interested in serving on. All right, Mark, well, that's going to do it for this episode of City Manager's Report. I have to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks again.
It's always a pleasure.
Again, the City Council meeting is this Tuesday, February 9th at 6 p.m. You can watch it live on City Cable 10 or online on our website at oshkoshcommunitymedia.org. You can also listen to it at 101.9 WOCT, which is now also online and on the TuneIn Radio app for mobile devices. Make sure to like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter for all of your community and government programming and updates, or check out our YouTube channel for government meeting replays and past episodes of your favorite programs. Don't forget, if you have a question for City Manager Mark Roloff, you can email it to questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us, and he'll answer it on the next episode of City Manager's Report. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us on City Manager's Report, and we'll see you next time.